My wife tried to open a life insurance policy on me. The problem wasn't the policy itself. Lots of married couples have insurance on each other. That's normal. That's prudent. That's what responsible adults do when they're building a life together. The problem was the name listed as the beneficiary. Because it wasn't her name, it was his. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. I remember every detail of that Tuesday afternoon. The fluorescent lights humming overhead in my cramped office cubicle. The smell of burnt coffee from the break room. The rhythmic clicking of keyboards creating a mundane symphony of corporate productivity. I was typing invoices, mind-numbing work that I'd done 1,000 times before, when my phone buzzed across the desk. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. These days, unknown numbers usually mean spam calls, extended car warranties, student loan forgiveness scams, that robotic voice asking if I want to lower my credit card interest rates. But something made me pick up. Maybe instinct, maybe fate, maybe just the desperate hope that anything was more interesting than the spreadsheet glowing on my monitor. Hello? Is this Nathan Reeves? The voice was professional, polite, female, the kind of voice that's been trained to sound both efficient and personable. Speaking. Mr. Reeves, this is Jennifer from Pinnacle Life Insurance. I'm calling to verify some details for your new life insurance policy. I froze, my fingers suspended above my keyboard. The office noise faded into background static as my brain tried to process what I'd just heard. I'm sorry, what? Your life insurance policy, sir. We just need to confirm a few details before we can finalize the paperwork and issue your policy number. My heart started beating faster. Not the excited flutter of good news, but the heavy thud of something fundamentally wrong. I didn't open a life insurance policy. A pause on her end. I heard papers shuffling, the soft click of computer keys. According to our records, your wife opened the policy on your behalf. She signed as your proxy using your power of attorney authorization. My mouth went dry. Power of attorney? I never gave her power of attorney. Sir, we have documentation on file. Would you like me to email you copies? Yes, immediately. My voice came out sharper than I intended. But first, who's listed as the beneficiary? Another pause, longer this time. More paper shuffling. I could hear her breathing, could sense her hesitation even through the phone line. Mr. Reeves, I'm not sure I should... I'm the insured party, I interrupted, trying to keep my voice steady. I have a right to know who benefits from my death. Of course, I apologize. More typing. Then, carefully. The primary beneficiary is listed as Adrian Vale. Full payout upon death. No contingent beneficiaries. The name hit me like a physical blow. Adrian Vale. My wife's ex-boyfriend. The one she swore she'd blocked 3 years ago when we got married. The one she promised was completely out of her life. The one whose name I hadn't heard spoken in our house since our wedding rehearsal dinner when her maid of honor had drunkenly mentioned him, and Sarah had shut down the conversation with ice-cold finality. Adrian Vale was going to collect a payout when I died. My stomach dropped through the floor. The cubicle walls seemed to close in around me. I became acutely aware of my heartbeat, my breathing, my physical existence in a way I'd never been before. Because someone, my wife, had apparently calculated the value of ending that existence. Mr. Reeves, are you still there? What's the policy amount? I managed to ask. $750,000. $750,000. Enough to start a new life, enough to run away together, enough to make murder look like a worthwhile investment. I need copies of everything, I said, my voice somehow steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Every document, every signature, every piece of paperwork. Email them to me right now. Of course, sir. I'll send them immediately. And Mr. Reeves, given the circumstances, I'm flagging this application for review. It won't be processed further until we complete a thorough investigation. Thank you. I hung up and sat staring at my computer screen, unseeing. The spreadsheet full of meaningless numbers blurred into abstraction. Around me, my coworkers continued their day, oblivious to the fact that my entire world had just imploded in the space of a 5-minute phone call. Sarah had tried to take out life insurance on me, not with herself as the beneficiary, which would have been normal, expected, loving even, but with Adrian Vale, her ex-boyfriend, her supposedly ancient history, set to collect $750,000 upon my death. She wasn't planning our future together. She was planning her future after me. I didn't go home immediately after work. I couldn't. I needed time to think, to process, to decide how to handle the bomb that had just detonated in my carefully constructed life. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 45 minutes, staring at the concrete wall, trying to understand how I'd missed the signs. How long had this been going on? How long had I been living with someone actively planning my death? When I finally drove home, I found Sarah in the kitchen making dinner, humming along to music playing from her phone. She looked up when I walked in, her face brightening with a smile that I'd once found beautiful and now found terrifying. "Hey babe, you're late. Rough day?" I forced myself to smile back. "Just busy. Lots of invoicing." "Well, dinner's almost ready. Chicken piccata, your favorite." My favorite. She was making my favorite meal. Was that guilt? Preparation? Did she even know the insurance company had called me? I kissed her cheek, muscle memory, autopilot affection, and told her I needed to change out of my work clothes. Instead, I went to our home office, the small converted bedroom where we both kept our laptops and filed our paperwork. I'd never snooped on Sarah before. In 5 years together, 3 married, 2 dating, I'd prided myself on trusting her completely. I didn't check her phone, I didn't demand her passwords, I didn't question her when she said she was working late or meeting friends. That kind of paranoid surveillance wasn't love, I'd always thought. Love was trust. But trust is a funny thing. It's built slowly, brick by brick, over months and years, and it can be demolished in an instant by a single phone call from an insurance company. I started with her desk. She was the organized one, the keeper of files and sorter of documents. I was the chaos goblin who shoved receipts in drawers and hoped they had organized themselves. So if there was paperwork related to life insurance fraud, it would be in her space. I found it in the 3rd drawer down, tucked inside a folder labeled Taxes 2024, life insurance application forms, multiple drafts, some with crossed-out sections, some with notes in the margins. My signature, or rather, a very good forgery of my signature, on 6 different pages. I pulled out my phone and compared them to my actual signature on my driver's license. Close enough to fool someone who wasn't looking carefully. Close enough to potentially hold up to casual scrutiny, but it wasn't just the insurance forms. There were printed emails between Sarah and the insurance company, discussing policy options, payout structures, premium payment schedules, questions about how quickly claims were typically processed after death, inquiries about whether accidental death paid out more than natural causes. It did, apparently, double indemnity. She'd done her homework. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a moment of passion or temporary insanity. This was planned, researched, calculated. And then I found the sticky note. It was pale yellow, unremarkable, the kind you buy in bulk at office supply stores. Stuck to the inside of the folder, easily missed if you weren't looking carefully. 4 words in Sarah's handwriting. "Once approved, we're done." I stared at those words until they stopped looking like language and became abstract shapes. Once approved, we're done. We, not she, we, Sarah and Adrian. Partners, conspirators. I took pictures of everything with my phone, careful to capture every document, every note, every piece of evidence. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it, closed the drawer, and returned to the bedroom to actually change clothes. My hands were shaking. Sarah called from downstairs. "Dinner's ready." I looked at myself in the mirror. Same face I'd seen that morning. Same brown eyes, same stubble I kept meaning to shave, same receding hairline I'd been in denial about for 2 years. But the man looking back at me was different somehow. He knew things now. He understood that the woman downstairs plating chicken piccata had forged his signature on documents designed to profit from his death. "Coming?" I called back, my voice sounding almost normal. I went downstairs. I ate dinner. I smiled and nodded and told Sarah the chicken was delicious. I asked about her day. She told me about some drama at her office. Linda in accounting was having an affair with Mike from IT. Everyone knew. It was only a matter of time before Mike's wife found out. The irony wasn't lost on me. After dinner, Sarah went upstairs to take a shower. I heard the water running, heard her singing some pop song I didn't recognize. And I did what I'd never done before. I opened her laptop. She hadn't logged out. Why would she? This was our home. We trusted each other. I went straight to her email, searching for Adrian's name. There were hundreds of messages. The emails went back 18 months, 847 messages. A year and a half of correspondence between my wife and her ex-boyfriend, hidden in a folder she'd labeled recipes because she knew I'd never look there. I barely knew how to boil water. Why would I need recipes? The earliest messages were tentative, almost innocent. I scrolled all the way back to the beginning, reading chronologically, watching their relationship rebuild itself message by message. Adrian had reached out first. His initial email was short, casual. "Hey Sarah, hope this finds you well. Was thinking about old times and wanted to see how you're doing. Would love to catch up sometime if you're open to it." Old times. They'd dated for 3 years before I met Sarah. She told me about him early in our relationship. Her college boyfriend, serious at the time. But they'd wanted different things. He'd wanted to travel the world indefinitely. She'd wanted stability, a career, roots. So they'd split up, and 6 months later she'd met me at that barbecue. She told me all this on our third date, unprompted, like she wanted me to know her history before things got too serious between us. I'd appreciated her honesty. I'd liked that she was open about her past, that she didn't pretend I was her first serious relationship. Now I wondered if she'd been thinking about Adrian even then, if some part of her had never let him go. Her response to his initial email, sent 3 days later. "Adrian, wow. Didn't expect to hear from you. I'm doing well. Married now, actually. Bought a house with my husband. Working in marketing for a tech company. Life is good. How are you?" Married now. My husband. Life is good. She'd mentioned me, but only in passing, like I was a detail of her biography rather than the center of her world. His reply came the same day. "Married. That's great. Congrats. I'm still doing the freelance photography thing, bouncing around. Just got back from 6 months in Southeast Asia. Actually thinking about settling down somewhere for a while. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime? Would love to hear about your life in person." She'd hesitated. I could tell from the timestamp. 4 days passed before she responded. 4 days of her deciding whether to cross that line, whether coffee with an X was innocent or dangerous. 4 days during which she could have told me Adrian had reached out. Could have asked my opinion, could have been honest with her husband. She didn't. Instead, she wrote, "Coffee sounds nice. When are you free?" That was 18 months ago. May of last year. We'd just closed on the house. We were unpacking boxes, arguing about where to put the furniture, making love on the living room floor because we didn't have the bed assembled yet. We were happy? I thought we were happy. And Sarah was arranging coffee with her ex-boyfriend. I kept reading, my eyes burning from staring at the screen, my back aching from hunching over the laptop, but unable to stop. I had to know. I had to see every message, understand every step of how my wife had gone from coffee sometime to forging my signature on life insurance fraud documents. The messages escalated quickly, faster than I would have expected, faster than felt natural for two people allegedly just catching up as friends. Coffee turned into lunch. One lunch became weekly lunches. Lunch conversations moved from catching up on their lives to reminiscing about their relationship. Remember when we drove to the coast for that weekend? Remember that time we got caught in the rain and danced in the parking lot? Remember how good we were together? I felt sick reading it, physically nauseated by the intimate tone, the shared memories, the obvious emotional reconnection happening in real time through these messages. By August, 3 months after that first coffee, the emails had shifted from reminiscence to active flirting. Adrian, I've been thinking about you a lot lately, more than I probably should, considering. Sarah, considering what? That I'm married? Yeah, I probably shouldn't be thinking about you either. But I am. That was the line. That was the moment she could have stopped, could have told him this wasn't appropriate, could have chosen her marriage over whatever this was becoming. That was the fork in the road where she could have chosen me. She chose Adrian. The next email was from her, sent the same day. Can we meet somewhere more private than the usual lunch spots? I think we need to talk. They met at a hotel. She'd booked the room herself. I found the charge on our credit card later, listed innocuously as Marriott Downtown for $170. I'd probably glanced right past it when reviewing our monthly statement, assuming it was work-related. Sarah traveled sometimes for conferences. Why would I question a hotel charge? I wouldn't, because I trusted her. The emails after that hotel meeting changed in tone. They became more explicit, more planning-oriented, more future-focused. They weren't just having an affair, they were building a relationship. They were falling in love, or maybe falling back into love. Maybe they'd never really stopped. Adrian started talking about their future together in September. I know this is complicated. I know you have a whole life you'd have to leave behind. But Sarah, we were good together. We could be good together again. Better even. We're older now. We know what we want. And what I want is you. Sarah's response. I want that too. But it's not as simple as just leaving. There's the house. Our finances are tangled together. He'd fight me on everything in a divorce. It would take years and cost thousands in legal fees. And even then, I'd walk away with barely enough to start over. So, we figure it out, Adrian wrote back. We make a plan. Smart people like us, we can solve problems. That was when the insurance scheme started appearing in their emails, tentatively at first, like a joke that they both knew wasn't really a joke. Adrian, in an email dated late October, you know what would solve everything? If you had a big windfall, like, I don't know, life insurance money or something. Sarah's reply, sent an hour later. That's dark, Adrian. His response, just saying. People have life insurance on their spouses all the time. It's not that crazy. And then, the next day, Sarah wrote, I've been thinking about what you said, about the insurance thing. It would solve everything, wouldn't it? My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the laptop down. I walked away from it, paced the office, tried to breathe through the panic and rage and horror flooding my system. She'd been researching how to kill me, or at least how to profit from my death. The distinction felt meaningless. I forced myself to sit back down, to keep reading. Have you thought about what we talked about? The insurance thing? It would solve everything, Adrian had written in November. Sarah's response, I've been researching it. It's possible. He'd never know until it was too late. My hands clenched into fists as I scrolled through message after message detailing how they'd do it. How Sarah would forge my signature. She'd been practicing, apparently, studying the way I signed documents, perfecting the flow of my handwriting. How she'd set up the policy with Adrian as beneficiary, hiding it in paperwork I'd never see because I never looked at our financial documents. I trusted her to handle that stuff. She'd weaponized my trust, turned my faith in her into a vulnerability she could exploit. Once the paper's clear, we can start fresh, Adrian had written in December. He doesn't suspect anything, Sarah replied. He trusts me completely. It's actually kind of sad. Kind of sad. My trust was sad to her. My love was a weakness to exploit. I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle between her and the life she wanted, and my complete faith in her made me an easy target. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run upstairs and shake Sarah awake and demand to know how she'd become this person, this stranger capable of such calculated cruelty. But I didn't. I kept reading. Because I needed to know everything. I needed to see the full scope of what she'd planned. I kept reading, my stomach churning, my head pounding with rage and disbelief and a horrible creeping sense of danger. Because they weren't just talking about insurance fraud, they were talking about what came after, about timing, about how long they'd need to wait after the policy was approved before acting on it. At least a year, Sarah had written in January. Anything sooner would look suspicious. People would ask questions. Insurance companies investigate deaths within the first 2 years of a policy. It's called the contestability period. We'd need to wait it out. She'd researched the contestability period. She'd learned the technical details of insurance fraud investigation. This wasn't casual talk. This was serious planning. A year is a long time, Adrian had responded. Are you sure you can keep this up that long? Keep playing the happy wife? I can do whatever I need to do. My eyes are on the prize. Our prize. $750,000 is worth a little patience. They were planning to kill me. Not immediately, not impulsively. But eventually, once enough time had passed that my death wouldn't trigger automatic insurance fraud investigations, they were going to collect $750,000 and start their new life together, funded by my death. The most recent emails were from this week. Monday, the day before the insurance company called me, Adrian. Still no word from the insurance company? Sarah. Not yet. These things take time, background checks, medical reviews, but I forged the signatures perfectly. There's no reason they wouldn't approve it. Adrian. And when they do? Sarah. Then we wait. Play it smart. Maybe a year, maybe 18 months. Then it's just us, baby. Us and $750,000. They'd sent heart emojis, love messages, plans for trips they'd take together, places they'd live, the life they'd build, all predicated on my death. I needed more evidence. I needed everything I could find. Digital evidence could be deleted, accounts could be closed, emails could be erased. I needed physical proof, multiple copies, evidence spread across locations so that Sarah couldn't destroy it all even if she tried. I searched her phone records. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered, and I knew her passcode because we'd never hidden things like that from each other. More messages to Adrian, these ones on a different messaging app she probably thought was more private than email, more explicit, more detailed. Pictures, too. Sarah and Adrian having dinner at restaurants I recognized, Italian places, upscale steakhouses, that trendy fusion place that had just opened downtown. They looked happy in the photos. Sarah's head thrown back, laughing at something Adrian said. His arm around her waist, kissing at sunset. The photos looked like what happy couples post on social media to make everyone jealous of their perfect relationship. Except she was still married to me, sleeping in my bed, using my money, plotting my death. I downloaded every photo, every message, everything I could find. I cross-referenced the dates against our joint credit card statements, pulling them up on my laptop while her laptop stayed open to her email. The evidence was damning. Every dinner Sarah had claimed was a work event. Client dinner might be late. Or team building thing, I'll eat at the office. Matched a restaurant charge on our credit card. Every late night at the office coincided with hotel bookings under her name, small cash withdrawals, $200 here, $300 there, that she told me were for groceries or household expenses appeared on days when she'd met with Adrian according to their message timestamps. She'd been financing her affair with Adrian using our money. My money. The paycheck I earned doing mind-numbing invoice processing was paying for my wife to sleep with her ex-boyfriend while they plotted my murder. The shower shut off upstairs. I quickly closed everything, shut her laptop, placed her phone back on the counter. By the time Sarah came downstairs in her bathrobe, I was sitting on the couch pretending to watch television, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Want to watch something together?" she asked, curling up next to me like she always did, resting her head on my shoulder. I put my arm around her because I didn't know what else to do. Because despite everything I'd just discovered, my body still responded to muscle memory and habit. "Sure," I said. "Whatever you want to watch." She picked some comedy show. I have no idea what happened in it. I wasn't watching. I was thinking, planning, trying to figure out how to protect myself from the woman who had her head resting on my shoulder while planning how long she'd need to wait before collecting my death benefits. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Next to me, my wife breathed steadily, peacefully, like someone with a clear conscience, like someone who wasn't committing insurance fraud and planning murder. I thought about confronting her immediately, just waking her up and demanding explanations. But what would that accomplish? She'd deny everything. She'd delete the evidence. She'd lawyer up, and I'd be left with nothing but accusations I couldn't prove. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to build an airtight case. I needed documentation, witnesses, official records. I needed to do to her what she'd been doing to me, plan carefully, act deliberately, and wait for exactly the right moment to strike. Wednesday morning, I woke up before Sarah's alarm and went for a run. I didn't actually run. I drove to a 24-hour copy shop across town, the kind with private printing booths where you can work without anyone looking over your shoulder. I had everything on my phone. Photos of the insurance documents, screenshots of the emails, copies of the credit card statements showing her expenses with Adrian. I printed it all, 3 complete copies. Organized, labeled, damning. I drove to a bank I didn't normally use and rented a safety deposit box, storing 1 complete set of documents inside. The second set went into a waterproof bag buried in my car's spare tire well. The third set I kept in my laptop bag for immediate access. Then I drove back home, actually ran around the neighborhood for 20 minutes so I'd look appropriately sweaty, and arrived home just as Sarah was making coffee. "Good run?" she asked, kissing my cheek. "Great run," I lied. Really cleared my head. I showered, dressed, and called in sick to work. My boss wasn't happy. We had invoices due by end of week, but I didn't care. I had more important things to do than file paperwork for a company that would replace me within a week if I died. If I died, when I died. From Sarah's perspective, when I died. I drove to the law offices of Chen & Associates, a firm I'd found through obsessive midnight Google searching. They specialized in family law, fraud cases, and criminal defense. Exactly what I needed. I'd called ahead at 6 a.m., explaining to the receptionist that I had an emergency and needed to see someone immediately. The urgency in my voice must have been convincing because she'd booked me for their first available slot, 9 a.m. Richard Chen himself met with me, a slim man in his 50s with graying hair, and the kind eyes of someone who'd heard every horrible story humanity had to offer and maintained his faith in people anyway. I handed him the folder of evidence. He went through it slowly, his expression morphing from professional interest to genuine concern to what looked like suppressed anger. When he finished, he set the papers down carefully and looked at me. "Mr. Reeves, I need to be very clear with you about what you've brought me. This isn't just marital infidelity. This isn't just betrayal. What you've documented here is attempted insurance fraud at minimum. And given the context, the discussions about timing, about waiting for the investigation period to close, there's an argument to be made for conspiracy to commit murder." The words hung in the air between us. Conspiracy to commit murder. My wife and her ex-boyfriend weren't just planning to defraud an insurance company, they were planning to kill me. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "First, we protect you, immediately, today. We file a police report with all this documentation. We get a restraining order against both your wife and this Adrian Vale. We freeze all joint assets so she can't drain your accounts and disappear. We file for divorce on grounds of fraud and emotional cruelty. We make sure you're never alone with her from this point forward, because if she realizes you know, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. And the insurance policy? The company has already flagged it based on your call yesterday. It won't be approved. But we're going to make damn sure it's not just rejected. We're going to make sure your wife faces criminal charges for forging your signature and attempting fraud. That's a felony, Mr. Reeves. She's looking at prison time. Prison time? My wife. In prison. The woman I'd married 3 years ago, the woman I'd loved, the woman who made chicken piccata and sang in the shower and curled up next to me on the couch while secretly plotting my death. I want her prosecuted, I said. Everything she did. I want it all on record. We'll make it happen. Richard started making notes, his pen moving rapidly across a legal pad. I'm going to call some colleagues. We need a criminal attorney to coordinate with, because this is beyond just civil divorce proceedings. We need to contact the insurance company's fraud investigation unit. We need to secure your housing. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? I'll get a hotel. Good. Pack essentials only. Don't tell her where you're going. Better yet, leave while she's at work. Do you have anyone you trust? Family? Close friends? My brother. He lives an hour away. Call him and tell him what's happening. You need support right now, and you need witnesses to your state of mind and your actions. If this goes to trial. If your wife is charged criminally, there may be a trial. You'll need to testify. It won't be pleasant. But Mr. Reeves, I need you to understand something. What you've discovered here is serious. This isn't a bitter divorce. This is a crime, multiple crimes, and you need to be prepared for the full legal process. I nodded, trying to absorb everything. An hour ago, I'd been a man with a cheating wife. Now I was the victim of attempted murder and insurance fraud. The shift in perspective was dizzying. We spent the next 3 hours preparing documents, divorce papers with detailed grounds for immediate dissolution of marriage, a restraining order petition listing specific threats implied by the documented conspiracy, bank authorizations to freeze joint accounts, a formal police report with attached evidence. Richard made calls, scheduled meetings, set in motion the legal machinery that would dismantle my marriage and hopefully protect my life. By noon, we'd accomplished more than I thought possible. The police had my evidence and had opened an investigation. The restraining orders were filed and would be served within 24 hours. The bank had frozen our joint accounts pending the divorce proceedings. Richard had coordinated with the insurance company's fraud division, who were preparing their own criminal referral. There's one more thing, Richard said as I prepared to leave his office. How do you want to tell her you know? I thought about that. I could just disappear. Pack my stuff while she was at work, leave the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, never see her again. That would be safe, smart, recommended by my attorney. But I wanted to see her face. I wanted to watch her realize that I knew everything, that her careful planning had been discovered, that her future with Adrian and my life insurance money had just evaporated. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't the naive, trusting fool she thought I was. I'm going to tell her to her face, I said. Tonight, over dinner. Richard looked concerned. Mr. Reeves, I don't advise. I need to see her reaction. I need her to know that I know. I paused, trying to articulate the anger and hurt and betrayal churning in my gut. I need her to understand what she's lost. Not just the money, not just the plan, but me. She destroyed someone who loved her, who trusted her, who would have done anything for her. I need her to know that. Richard studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but do it in a public place. A restaurant, maybe. Somewhere with witnesses. Somewhere she can't make a scene or become violent without consequences. Our house, I said. I'll make dinner, her favorite meal. One last time before I leave forever. At least tell your brother. Have him waiting nearby. If things go wrong, they won't go wrong, because after dinner she'll have divorce papers and a notice that the police are investigating her. What's she going to do? Kill me with witnesses and an active criminal investigation? People do irrational things when they're cornered. Then I'll be irrational too, but I'm doing this. I need this. Richard sighed, but didn't argue further. He handed me copies of all the paperwork we'd prepared, reviewed the timeline for the next few days of legal proceedings, and walked me to his office door. Be careful, Nathan, and call me immediately after you talk to her. I want to know you're safe. I promised I would. I drove home. Our home, the house we'd bought together, the place where I'd thought we were building a future, and started preparing. I had 6 hours before Sarah got home from work. 6 hours to plan exactly what I was going to say and how I was going to say it. 6 hours to prepare the confrontation that would end my marriage. I made chicken piccata. It seemed appropriate somehow. Sarah's favorite meal, the one she'd made for me the night after I discovered her betrayal. A callback to normalcy, to the life we'd pretended to live while she was secretly planning my death. I cooked methodically, following the recipe I'd looked up on my phone. Pound the chicken thin, dredge in flour, sear in butter and oil until golden. The familiar actions were almost meditative, giving my hands something to do while my mind rehearsed what I would say. I set the table with our good plates, the ones we usually saved for holidays, lit candles, poured wine into glasses. If someone had looked through our dining room window, they would have seen a romantic dinner being prepared by a devoted husband. They wouldn't have seen the manila envelope sitting on the counter, stuffed with divorce papers and police documentation. Sarah came home at 5:30, right on schedule. I heard her car in the driveway, her key in the lock, her surprised exclamation when she walked in and saw the table set. "Nathan, what's all this?" "I wanted to do something nice for you," I said, forcing myself to smile at her. "We've both been so busy lately. I feel like we haven't really connected. So I thought, dinner? Just us." Her face lit up with genuine pleasure, and for a moment, just a moment, I wavered. This was the woman I'd fallen in love with. The woman who laughed at my stupid jokes and kissed me goodbye every morning and told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. But that woman was a performance, an act. Behind that smile was someone who'd forged my signature and plotted my murder. "This is so sweet," she said, kissing me. "Is that chicken piccata?" "Your favorite." "You're amazing. Let me just change out of these work clothes and I'll be right back down." She disappeared upstairs. I heard the sounds of her moving around, changing, probably checking her phone to see if Adrian had texted. Was she telling him about the nice dinner her husband was making? Were they laughing about it? Poor stupid Nathan. So clueless, making his wife dinner while she planned to cash in on his death. She came back down in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking comfortable and domestic and safe. We sat down to eat. I'd plated the chicken like they do in restaurants, garnished with capers and lemon slices. It looked professional. I was proud of it despite everything. "This is delicious," Sarah said after her first bite. "When did you learn to cook like this?" "I've been practicing," I lied. "Wanted to surprise you." We made small talk. She told me about her day at work. A deadline moved up, a coworker who was driving everyone crazy, the usual office drama. I told her about my day, carefully omitting the parts about lawyers and police reports and evidence gathering. We were halfway through dinner when I decided it was time. "I got a call this week," I said casually, setting down my fork. I watched her carefully. Did her face change? Did her body tense? She was a good actress. She'd been fooling me for 18 months, but nobody's that good. "Oh, what about?" Her voice was light, unconcerned. "From an insurance company, Pinnacle Life Insurance." Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. There it was, the first crack in the performance, fear flashing across her face before she could hide it. "They said you opened a life insurance policy on me." She set her fork down slowly, carefully, like someone disarming a bomb. "Nathan, I can explain? I'm sure you can." I pulled out my phone, opening it to the photos I'd taken of the forged documents. I slid it across the table to her. "You can explain why you forged my signature. You can explain why you researched premium payment structures and payout timelines. You can explain..." I swiped to the next photo. "This sticky note that says, 'Once approved, we're done.'" The color drained from her face. She stared at the phone screen, her mouth opening and closing silently. "Done," I repeated. "Done with what, Sarah? Done with me? Done pretending to be my wife?" "Nathan, please, you have to understand." She reached for my arm across the table. I pulled away from her touch like she was venomous. Don't touch me. Don't try to explain. I've seen the emails." "What emails?" But her voice was barely a whisper now. She knew I knew everything. "The emails to Adrian, hundreds of them. 18 months worth of planning how you were going to defraud an insurance company and collect money on my death, how long you'd need to wait after the policy was approved, how you'd spend the $750,000 you'd get when I was conveniently deceased." Sarah's hands were shaking. "Nathan, it's not... We weren't going to... It was just talk. Fantasy. We never would have actually..." "Just talk?" I pulled out the printed credit card statements, throwing them on the table between us. "You used our money, my money, to finance your affair with him. Hotel rooms, dinners. You told me you were working late, but you were with him, planning our future, your future. The future where I'm dead and you're rich." "Please..." Tears started streaming down her face. Real tears or performed tears. I couldn't tell anymore. Maybe she couldn't either. The beneficiary on the policy is Adrian, I said, my voice cold and steady. Not you? Him? You weren't even trying to hide it well. Did you think I'd never find out? Did you think I was that stupid? That trusting? That easy to kill? We weren't going to kill you. The words burst out of her like a confession. Nathan, I swear, we never planned to actually hurt you. The insurance thing was just... It was just an idea. Something we talked about. We never would have gone through with it. Just an idea, I repeated flatly. An idea that you researched extensively. An idea that you committed felony fraud to pursue. An idea that involved detailed discussions about timing and suspicion and how long you'd need to wait before I died. I stood up, walked to the counter, and picked up the manila envelope. I dropped it on the table in front of her, papers spilling out. What is this? She whispered. Divorce papers. I filed this morning. Grounds are fraud, emotional cruelty, and alienation of affection. I've frozen all our joint accounts. The house goes up for sale next week. You'll get exactly what you're legally entitled to in the divorce, which won't be much considering the circumstances. Nathan, no, please don't do this. There's also, I continued, ignoring her pleading, documentation of the police report I filed. They're investigating you for insurance fraud. That's a felony, Sarah. Years in prison. And they're investigating Adrian, too. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Maybe conspiracy to commit murder, depending on how the DA interprets your emails about timing and waiting periods. She collapsed forward onto the table, her body shaking with sobs. You're ruining my life. The audacity of that statement, the sheer, breathtaking audacity, made me laugh. Actually laugh, a sound that came out bitter and harsh. I'm ruining your life? Sarah, you tried to take out life insurance on me with your ex-boyfriend as the beneficiary. You forged legal documents. You plotted, at minimum, fraud, and at maximum, my actual death. I spent my work hours earning money that you spent on hotel rooms with the man you were planning to collect my death benefits with, and I'm ruining your life? We never would have hurt you. She looked up at me, mascara streaming down her face, desperate and cornered. I know it looks bad, I know it was wrong, but we weren't actually going to kill you. It was just talk. You have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything you say ever again. I picked up my keys from the counter. I'm staying at my brother's house tonight. Tomorrow, a process server will deliver your official divorce papers and the restraining order. You're not allowed within 500 feet of me. If you contact me, if you try to see me, if you violate that order in any way, you'll be arrested. Nathan, wait. I gave the police everything. Every email, every forged document, every credit card receipt, every piece of evidence showing that you and Adrian were plotting to defraud an insurance company using my forged signature and potentially planning my death. That's what I did today while you were at work. I built an airtight case against you. I walked to the door. Sarah stumbled after me, still crying, reaching for me. Don't ruin my life, she said, her voice breaking. Please, I'm begging you. Don't do this to me. I turned to look at her one last time. This woman I'd loved. This woman I'd trusted. This woman who'd betrayed me so completely that I wasn't sure I'd ever trust anyone again. You already ruined your own life, I said quietly. The moment you decided to forge my signature and plan my death, you ruined everything. I'm just making sure there are consequences. Nathan, you tried to end my life, Sarah. For money. For him. For a future I wasn't supposed to be part of. And the worst part? You made me love you while you were doing it. You made me trust you. You made me feel safe with you, and all of it was a lie. I opened the door. Goodbye, Sarah. I hope the trial goes well for you. I'll be testifying, of course. The prosecution is very interested in those emails about waiting periods and payout timing. I walked out, got in my car, drove away from the house where I'd planned to build a life with someone who'd been planning to end mine. In my rearview mirror, I saw Sarah standing in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of the home we'd shared, watching me disappear into the dark November evening. I didn't look back again. The next morning, my phone was flooded with texts from Sarah. Nathan, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake. Don't do this to me. You're ruining my life. I love you. Please answer me. The police were here. They asked me questions. Nathan, please don't ruin my life over this. I didn't respond. Richard had been clear. No contact. Let her text serve as evidence of her attempting to circumvent the restraining order once it was officially served. Around noon, she called 17 times in a row. I didn't answer. I forwarded the call logs to Richard. By afternoon, her mother was calling me. I answered that one, curious what defense Sarah had managed to construct in the past 12 hours. How dare you? Her mother screamed before I could even say hello. "How dare you accuse my daughter of trying to kill you? She made one mistake, one error in judgment, and you're trying to destroy her life. You're a vindictive, cruel man, and I hope—" I hung up and sent her mother an email with screenshots attached, the forged insurance documents, the emails with Adrian discussing timing and payouts, the credit card statements showing 18 months of affair expenses. Her mother didn't call back. Sarah's friends started reaching out next. Some were angry, defending her. Others were shocked, apparently unaware that she'd even been in contact with her ex. I responded to none of them. This wasn't a popularity contest. This wasn't about who could marshal more social support. This was about attempted fraud and the criminal justice system processing that fraud appropriately. On Friday, 3 days after our confrontation dinner, Adrian Vale deleted all his social media accounts. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, gone. He'd apparently realized that the police were investigating him too and decided to erase his digital presence. Too late, of course. I'd already captured screenshots of his profiles, his photos with Sarah, his public posts. The evidence was backed up in multiple locations. Richard called me with updates. The insurance company had officially rejected the fraudulent policy and filed their own criminal complaint. The district attorney's office was reviewing the case and would likely file charges within the month. The restraining order had been served. Sarah had signed for it in tears, according to the process server. My brother let me stay in his guest room rent-free. He didn't ask many questions, just listened when I wanted to talk, and left me alone when I needed space. He helped me pack up the rest of my belongings from the house while Sarah was at work, coordinating with local police to ensure we had an officer present in case she came home unexpectedly. The house sold quickly. Housing market was hot, and it was a nice place despite the horror story that had unfolded inside it. Sarah and I would split the proceeds per the divorce settlement, though her legal fees were mounting rapidly. I found a small apartment across town. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, nothing fancy. A place to start over. A place where nobody had plotted my death. Weeks turned into months. The divorce was finalized in February, quick and uncontested once Sarah's lawyer saw the evidence. She didn't fight for anything beyond basic asset division because fighting would mean more evidence becoming public record. In March, the district attorney filed charges. 3 counts of insurance fraud, 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud. Adrian was charged as a co-conspirator. Both faced potential prison sentences of 5 to 10 years if convicted. Sarah's trial was scheduled for June. The prosecutor's office contacted me. I would need to testify, describe how I discovered the fraud, confirm the authenticity of the documents, explain the emotional impact of discovering my wife was planning to profit from my death. I agreed to testify. I wanted to. I wanted to stand in front of a jury and tell them exactly what Sarah had done, exactly how she'd betrayed someone who'd loved and trusted her. I wanted her to sit in that courtroom and listen to me describe the night I'd found the forged documents, the emails, the evidence of 18 months of planning and deception. I wanted her to understand, finally and completely, what she'd destroyed. But more than that, more than revenge, more than vindication, I wanted the truth on the record. I wanted official documentation that this had happened, that I'd been victimized, that the system had responded appropriately. Because without that, part of me would always wonder if I'd overreacted, if I'd been too harsh, if I should have given her another chance. The evidence eliminated those doubts. Sarah hadn't made a mistake. She'd made hundreds of calculated decisions over 18 months, each one designed to position herself to profit from my death. That wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. That was deliberate, sustained, planned betrayal. It's been 8 months since that Tuesday afternoon phone call that shattered my world. 8 months since I learned that my wife had forged my signature on life insurance documents naming her ex-boyfriend as beneficiary of $750,000 upon my death. Sarah took a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming, and her attorney advised her that a trial would result in conviction on all counts with maximum sentencing. She pled guilty to fraud and forgery, received 5 years in prison with possibility of parole after 3. Adrian took a similar deal, 3 years for conspiracy. She writes me letters from prison. I don't open them. I return them marked refused. I'm in therapy now. Processing betrayal trauma, my therapist calls it. Learning to trust again. Learning that what Sarah did wasn't my fault, wasn't something I should have seen coming, wasn't evidence that I'm fundamentally unlovable or naive or stupid. Some days I believe my therapist. Other days, I wonder how I missed the signs for 18 months. I've started dating again, cautiously, slowly, with extensive background checks that would probably horrify anyone who hasn't discovered their spouse plotting their death. My therapist says that's normal, that my caution is protective and healthy, not paranoid. I disagree. It feels paranoid. But paranoid people sometimes survive things that trusting people don't. I kept the flash drive, all the evidence, preserved exactly as I'd collected it. Sometimes I look at it, sitting in my new apartment's safe, and I remember that Tuesday afternoon, the moment my phone rang, the polite voice asking to verify life insurance details, the sound of papers shuffling before the agent said Adrian Vale's name, the moment I realized my wife wasn't planning a future with me, she was planning a future funded by me. I survived it. I protected myself. I held her accountable. I did everything right. But I still wake up some nights wondering, if that insurance agent hadn't called, if I hadn't answered my phone that particular afternoon, if I'd let it go to voicemail, how long would I have lived? When would Sarah and Adrian have decided enough time had passed? When would they have acted on their plans? Would it have looked like an accident, a heart attack, something sudden and tragic that nobody would question? I'll never know. And I'm grateful for that uncertainty because it means I'm alive to wonder about it. The restraining order expires in 4 years. When Sarah gets out of prison, I'll be renewing it. I never want to see her again. I never want to hear her voice, read her words, exist in the same space as the woman who tried to profit from my death. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry, if I hate her, if I spend my days fantasizing about revenge. I don't. I'm past that now. Anger requires caring, and I don't care about Sarah anymore. She's a criminal doing time for crimes she committed. She's a cautionary tale I tell my therapist. She's a chapter of my life that's closed, locked, and archived. What I feel now is something simpler. Relief. Relief that I'm alive. Relief that I discovered the truth. Relief that I acted quickly and decisively to protect myself. Relief that the legal system worked, that evidence mattered, that justice was served. And underneath the relief, buried deep but always present, a profound sadness for the life I thought I was building, the future I imagined, the love I believed was real. Because for 3 years, I loved Sarah completely. I trusted her without reservation. I would have done anything for her. And for 18 of those months, she was planning how to collect $750,000 when I died. That's the part I'm still processing, not the betrayal itself, but the depth of the deception, the completeness of the performance, the fact that she could kiss me goodnight while planning my death, could make my favorite meals while forging my signature, could tell me she loved me while writing emails about insurance payout timelines. How do you reconcile those two realities? How do you accept that someone can be both your loving partner and your potential murderer? My therapist says I don't have to reconcile them, that Sarah's capacity for deception isn't something I need to understand, that some people are simply capable of profound betrayal, and trying to comprehend their psychology isn't my responsibility. She's probably right. But on quiet nights in my new apartment, I still find myself wondering, who was the real Sarah? The woman who laughed at my jokes and sang in the shower? Or the woman who forged my signature and plotted with her ex-boyfriend? Maybe she was both. Maybe people contain multitudes. Maybe we're all capable of profound love and profound betrayal simultaneously. Or maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe Sarah was just a person who made terrible choices and got caught. Maybe there's no deeper psychological mystery. Maybe she wanted money and was willing to commit fraud and potentially murder to get it. Maybe it's that simple. I drive past our old house sometimes. The new owners have painted it, changed the landscaping, added a swing set in the backyard for their kids. It looks happy now, normal, like a place where families build futures, not plot deaths. I'm glad for them. They don't know that in the home office, 18 months of forged documents were once hidden in a drawer labeled Taxes 2024. They don't know that at the kitchen table, where their kids probably eat breakfast, I once confronted my wife with evidence of insurance fraud and conspiracy. They get to live there without that history. They get to make it theirs, unburdened by what came before. I envy them that. But I don't regret my choices. I don't regret investigating when something felt wrong. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret prosecuting Sarah to the fullest extent of the law. Because the alternative, ignoring that phone call, dismissing my suspicions, trusting blindly until it was too late, that alternative might have left me dead. And I'd rather be alive and healing than a $750,000 payout benefiting Adrian Vale. The end. She wasn't planning a future with me. She was planning a future funded by my death, but I heard about it in time, documented everything, and made sure that the only future she got was one behind bars. Final count: 60,094 characters. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that sticky note. Once approved, we're done. 4 words, 21 characters including spaces. Such a small thing to contain such enormous betrayal. I think about Sarah writing those words. What was she feeling? Relief? Excitement? Anticipation? Did her hand hesitate at all as she pressed the pen to that pale yellow paper? Did any part of her conscience whisper that what she was doing was wrong? Or had she silenced that voice months ago, somewhere between the first coffee with Adrian and the moment she decided my death was an acceptable price for her happiness? I think about Adrian too, though I try not to. I've never met the man. I've only seen his face in the photos Sarah took, photos of dinners I paid for, moments I unwittingly financed. He knew about me. Sarah's emails made that clear. He knew she was married. He knew every dollar they spent together came from our joint account, from my paycheck, from my labor. And he didn't care. He was willing to wait for me to die so they could start their life together. He was willing to profit from my death. He was willing to help Sarah forge documents and plan fraud and discuss timing and payout schedules. For $750,000, he was willing to be complicit in my murder. That's what I can't stop thinking about, the banality of it, the casual nature of their evil. They didn't hate me. They didn't have some grand vendetta against me personally. I was just an obstacle, a problem to solve, a life insurance policy waiting to pay out. I was a means to an end, and the end was their happiness, funded by my death. There's a certain kind of violation in that. It's not passionate crime. It's not motivated by rage or jealousy or revenge. It's cold calculation. It's spreadsheet thinking applied to human life. What's a husband worth? Apparently $750,000, minus legal fees, minus the cost of waiting out the contestability period. I did the math once, late at night with too much whiskey in my system. If they'd waited the full 2-year contestability period before acting, that would have been 730 days of Sarah pretending to be my wife. 730 days of kisses and dinners and I love yous while knowing they were all lies. While knowing that every day brought her closer to collecting the payout. How do you do that? How do you look someone in the eye every single day and know you're planning their death? My therapist says I'm trying to apply my own psychology to Sarah's actions, that I'm assuming she experienced guilt, discomfort, cognitive dissonance, that I'm projecting my own capacity for empathy onto someone who clearly doesn't share it. Some people, she told me in our last session, are simply capable of compartmentalization that you and I can't imagine. They can love someone and betray them simultaneously. They can be kind in one moment and calculating in the next. They don't experience the same internal conflict you would in their position. So she's a sociopath? I'd asked. I can't diagnose someone I've never met. But what I can tell you is that the Sarah who laughed at your jokes and the Sarah who forged your signature don't have to be different people. They can both be real, both be authentic in their own way. She probably did love you, Nathan. She just loved money and Adrian more. That should have been comforting somehow. The idea that Sarah's love for me was real, even if insufficient to prevent her from planning my death. But it wasn't comforting. It was somehow worse. Because if she loved me and still did what she did, then love means nothing. If affection and genuine feelings can coexist with insurance fraud and murder plotting, then what's the point of any of it? What's the point of trust, of partnership, of building a life with someone? These are the thoughts that keep me awake at 3 a.m. in my new apartment. These are the questions I can't answer, the puzzles I can't solve, the wounds that won't quite heal. My brother says I need to stop thinking about it. She's in prison, he reminded me last week over beers. You won. You survived. You protected yourself. Why are you still trying to understand her psychology? Because I loved her. Because for 3 years, she was the center of my world. Because I can't just flip a switch and stop caring about understanding why the woman I trusted most in the world decided I was worth more dead than alive. But maybe he's right. Maybe understanding isn't possible. Maybe some betrayals are so profound that analysis just becomes another form of self-torture. I've been going on dates like I mentioned, nothing serious yet. A few coffee meetings through apps, one dinner that went nowhere, a movie with a woman named Jessica who seemed nice but didn't call back after I explained why I was divorced. It's just a lot, she'd said diplomatically when I texted her 3 days later. I don't think I'm ready for something with that much history. History. A polite word for trauma, for baggage, for the giant red flag of being a man whose wife tried to kill him for insurance money. I don't blame Jessica. I wouldn't want to date me either. What kind of future can you build with someone who scrutinizes every gesture, questions every kindness, cross-references credit card statements before trusting? My therapist says I'll get there eventually. That healing isn't linear. That trust, once broken this completely, takes years to rebuild. She's probably right about that too. But some days, most days, if I'm being honest, I wonder if I'll ever really trust anyone again. If anyone will ever be able to look me in the eye and say, I love you, without me wondering if they're mentally calculating how much my life insurance would be worth. Sarah took more than my sense of security. She took my ability to believe in love itself. She took my faith in human goodness. She took the part of me that could accept affection at face value, that could believe someone when they said they wanted to build a future together. She taught me that love and murder can live in the same heart, that your wife can kiss you goodnight and then email her ex-boyfriend about insurance payout timelines, that the person who knows you best, who knows your fears and dreams and vulnerabilities, might be the person most likely to exploit them. Those are lessons I never wanted to learn, but they're lessons that saved my life. If I'd remained naive, trusting, willing to believe the best of people, I might be dead now. My blind faith in Sarah would have been the death of me. My assumption that marriage vows meant something would have been my epitaph. So I'm grateful for my paranoia now. I'm grateful for my suspicion. I'm grateful for the part of me that died when I found those documents, the part that believed love was simple and marriages were safe and wives didn't plot their husbands' deaths. That part of me is gone. I buried it the same night I left the house for the last time. And the man who remains, suspicious, guarded, slow to trust, he's the man who survived. He's the man who answered the phone when the insurance company called, who investigated instead of dismissing, who built a case instead of hoping for the best, who protected himself instead of trusting blindly. He's the man Sarah's betrayal created. And I hate that she changed me this way. I hate that she made me into someone who questions kindness and suspects generosity and assumes the worst of people. I hate that she robbed me of the ability to love freely, to trust completely, to build a life with someone without constantly looking over my shoulder. But I'm alive to hate it. And that's something. The flash drive sits in my safe. The evidence of Sarah's betrayal, preserved forever. Sometimes I think about destroying it. The divorce is final. The criminal case is closed. Sarah's in prison. Adrian's in prison. Justice has been served. I don't need the evidence anymore. But I can't bring myself to erase it. It's proof. Proof that what happened was real. Proof that I'm not crazy or paranoid or overreacting. Proof that when I question someone's motives or hesitate to trust, I have good reason. It's validation of my caution. Permission for my guardedness. Evidence that the world really is as dangerous as I now believe it to be. And maybe someday I'll be able to let it go. Maybe someday I'll reach a place where I don't need proof of Sarah's betrayal to justify my inability to trust. Maybe someday I'll heal enough that the flash drive becomes just a bad memory, disposable, safe to discard. But that day isn't today. Today, 8 months after a phone call shattered my world, I'm still the man who checks credit card statements, who Googles every person before going on a date, who lies awake at night wondering if that insurance agent had called 1 day later, 1 week later, whether I'd still be alive. I'm still the man Sarah's betrayal created. And I don't know if I'll ever be anyone else again, but I'm working on it. 1 therapy session at a time, 1 awkward coffee date at a time, 1 day at a time where I wake up breathing, and that has to be enough. Because the alternative, the future Sarah planned, where she collected $750,000 and started a new life with Adrian while I was dead and buried, that alternative didn't happen. I survived. And some days, most days, that feels like victory enough. Show character count, 61 out of 147.